Good morning to all viewers. In Wikipedia, today we are going to launch a new playlist about Microsoft Azure AI. Today, we are going to start about what is an AI and how to create an account in Windows Azure AI and how to invoke an AI service from Microsoft Azure online platform. Okay, right. Now, what are the things we are going to see about like little bit introduction about AI on Azure, getting started with Azure AI services. That thing we will do it as a demo. I have a virtual account, Microsoft Learner account. In that, we will be doing it. How to use AI services for enterprise application. That thing we will be dealing in the our second video. So today we are going to say about a little bit of introduction about AI and Azure platform, and getting started with Azure AI services. Now, we already know about what is in the artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, it's like making a machine to act like a human that should exhibit human capabilities such as visual perception, text analysis, conversation, and decision making. Visual perception, so it's like image identifications or object identification. We can call that service OCR services. Object character recognition, text analysis, search engine, or like you can say it as a Google translator. Conversation, so example auto chatbots, depends upon our question, it should give you a conversation, it should give you suggestions, that kind of a thing. You can say it like one of our AI services. Decision making, depends upon what commands, depends upon what kind of input you are giving it, it should generate some kind of a decision making, right? Example, in chatbot we will be giving some queries in terms of a sentence along with some attributes or some other informations. So based upon that, it will generate some image or code, or like it will run some application or whatever it may be. That thing is like called of a decision making. Okay. Now, what is an artificial intelligence? So first, artificial intelligence, it's like making a machine to think like a human. So to make it more perfectly, we should have known about machine learning algorithm. We should train train that machine to act like a human. So for that, we need to have a little bit of a foundation on machine learning. So whenever you want to train a particular machine, so we have to give you the correct information, we have to give the correct data. So there is another domain called as a data science. So artificial intelligence works along with machine learning as well as with data science, right? This was a short introduction about relation between AI, machine learning, and data science. Now, to become a software engineer in AI, there are three possibilities are there. One, we have to go with software development skills, or like conceptual way. That is like you will become a data scientist. So for becoming a software development skill, the key skills, what are the required like coding skills. First thing, you can go with C# or Python or Node.js. So these are the three programming languages nowadays to become an AI engineer. This is the major requirement are there. And then we should know about how to consume APIs. Either it can be a REST API or it like standard SDKs. And then you should know about little bit about software development, DevOps life cycle, development operation cycles, source control, and then CI and CD. In the conceptual AI understanding, you should know about how to create a model, how to train a model, how to test a model, and how to evaluate the model. And then you should also know about what are the responsibility you should possess as a responsible AI engineer. Now, let me go with how Azure platform works. So in Azure platform, we will be like acting as a coder or acting as a user. We will be requesting as a client. So we will be deploying in that cloud, and then this cloud service will integrate with two key things. One is like for data science, we need to have a data. One part we will have a data. Another thing is like this deployed model must be tested, must be trained. For that, we need to have a machine learning algorithm that we call it as an experimental part. So one part is like on data science, what kind of a data you are going to go take it, how much of data you are going to do it, how you are going to process your data, how you are going to clean your data, all these things deals with one part, and other part is the experimenting part, that is your machine learning. So you will be implementing your machine learning algorithms along with the data science inside a cloud deployment model. Now, what are the kinds of Azure services it's provide? Like basically we can classify into four different services: language service, speech service, vision services, and generative AI services. Language service, text analysis. Example, search query. So whenever you give you a text, it will be splitting into some kind of a tokens, and it will be giving you suggestions, giving you related information based upon it. This is called a text analysis. Question answering, simple chatbot applications. Language understanding, so we will be reading some content, either it may be in image format or PDF format or direct textual format. It may be in any language. So language, you will be learning it and you will be identifying it, what language is it, what content is it, and then what is the main keywords in it, what is the theme of it, and then we will be concluding it. This we call as a language understanding. Translation, example, like a Google Translator. Speech recognition is one of a speech recognition, speech synthesis, speech translation, and speaker recognition. These four are comes under a speech services. Speech recognition, example, it's like simple thing: audio to video, audio to text conversion, text to audio conversion. From the text, you are synthesizing your language, and another thing is like from one language, from one voice language conversion to another voice conversion, that we call as a speech translation. And speaker recognition, so every people has their own type of speaking, so that we call as a speaker recognition. Either it is a male voice, either it is a female voice, either it is in English language under British accent, or like UK or US or Indian accent. What kind of speak it is, that kind of thing you can identify it as speaker recognition. Vision intelligence, simply you can say it vision intelligence. Image and video analytics, image classification, object detection, optical character recognition. Optical character recognition can also be combined with language, so where we will be scanning a document as an image format. From that image format, we will be identifying the content. We will making text analysis. Any kind of AI services can be combined with other services also. Example, language and vision services can be combined. It's like character recognition from an image. Example, capture recognition from an image. And most advanced one is like generative text. Generative AI is like a creating a new chatbot, or else you can have it as an image generation. So in chatbot, you are giving some captions in it. Depends upon your caption, some images will be generating it. So that kind of thing is called as a generative AI. For advanced application, we will be using generative AI. Now AI search engine, how it works, Azure AI search. So we will be coding it. Once you have given it, all this data will be fetched into the cloud and through an AI enrich pipeline. This enrich pipeline will fed all your data and it will index it based upon the entities or keywords in your text. From this indexing whenever you give any search text, any search query, it will try to search in the index. Based upon the indexing concept, it will try to fetch your data and it will give you a result. This is how Azure AI search works. Right, now get started with Azure services. What are the basic things is like, first thing, we should have an subscription or an account. Once you have a subscription, you will be creating a service resources. There are two types of service resources you can create it. Either it can be a single service resource or multi-service resource. Single service resource. If you create a single service resource, then you will be able to access any one of a service. Either like language service or vision service or like speech service, any one of a service. If you are going to include it, then you can create a service type called as a single service resource. Or else, if you want to in your project, in your application, if you want to access more than one application, more than one kind of a Azure AI service, then you can create a multi-service account. Consider it. If I want to scan a multiple set of bills generated in my bills generated in terms of an image document, then what I can do it like I need to have a image services, that is like audio services has to be needed, and along with image services has to be needed. Then image, from that image service I will be making OCR, that is like object character recognition. From that object character recognition I'm going to filter the text, and then I'm going to make a text analysis. So here I'm going to utilize two kinds of services. One is like I can use my OCR, object recognition services, image services, and along with it, from that identified image I'm going to make some text analysis. For that I need to have a text services, language services, right? So which means that I need to create a multi-service account. Now, next, once your service has been created, so it will create a access point. That access point is called an endpoint, or else you can say it as a URL, right? And this URL should have an authentication access. So for that authentication access, you have a key. So here sometimes single key will be generated, or sometimes multiple key will be generated. Based upon that key, you can authenticate it. And since all these things are like running on a cloud platform, you can select your locations also. So three things has to be needed. First, decide what kind of account you are going to create it, either single service account or multi service account, and then choose created. So once you have created, it will create with endpoint, key, and your location. So location you can customize it based upon availability, and then your service has been created. Once the service has been created, you can share this link and someone can access it through this data. So within the service link, you can create any kind of a storage service, or like a language service, or whatever it may be. If you need, you have to include APIs or SDKs also. Now, let me see what is Azure AI Service SDKs. Azure AI Services SDKs, it can come in .NET platform, or it can come in Python, or it can use Node.js or Java, right? So here I'm going to give you a demo on Python only, right? Since Python is very easy to understand, so I'm going to train all those videos only on using Python. If needed, there is an alternative way in .NET framework. C Sharp is also available, that will be publishing in another playlist channel. Okay, now let me start with our project. So I have a Microsoft Azure Learning account. This they have given me one virtual account. In that virtual account, I'm going to create and show you the list of content. Now, this is a virtual account. In that, student login is there. So password they have given it. I'm going to type that password. So this is for accessing the virtual environment they have given to me. Once the virtual thing has been done, so after that I'm going to access it to their Azure portal. So for the Azure portal, they have given me a demo login. So their username and password is there. So using this username and password, I'm going to access it. And they have also created a one multi-service or single service account. That resource group, they have named it as resource group one. This thing, I'm going to say it as a default account. I'm going to say it as a default account one. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you how to go with Microsoft Azure services. This isn't like a virtual environment where I have a limited access it. So in this limited access it, I'm going to do an exercise showing you in how to create an Azure AI services. So if you have a Microsoft virtual account or Microsoft AI Azure account, then there is no issues. You can log in with your own Microsoft account. Now, how to do it? Open a browser. In that browser, for accessing Microsoft AI services, we have a URL. That URL name is called as a portal.azure.com. Portal.azure.com. Right? Type it, enter it. Once you have entered it, it will ask for your authentication, that is like username or password. Sign in if you have your Microsoft Azure account with your username and password. I don't have an account. Instead, I'm going to go with the free virtual account, virtual login they have given to me for a limited time period. Okay. Now this is the username. I'm going to type it. Now after that, giving your Microsoft Azure account username, type the password, click sign in. Now this we call it as the this we call it as the Microsoft Azure platform. Looks like this thing. So here you can search. Here these are the list of services it was available here. Here you can search and find it out what kind of services you needed it. Now we are going to create one Microsoft Azure services. Right, we have done it. So here this is called as a search bar. Here you can search what kind of Azure AI services you needed it. Right, here click on it. Default, we are going to create one Azure services. Here itself we have something called Azure AI services. Click on it. Once you click on it, it will give you a list of all the services are available here. So these are the list of services available here. Now we for that, if you need to create an Azure AI services multi-services account, then search for Azure AI services here. Azure AI services. So in that Azure AI services, if you are going to create an Azure AI service multi-account, then click on it, Azure AI service multi-account. Right, once it has been done, here you can create your Azure AI multi-service account. So click create button. So in that click create button, it will ask what are the details you have it. So if you have already subscribed, then you have like some subscription. So since it was like virtual mode, they have already created one subscription. You can select that, and if you want it, you can create a resource group. Already one resource group is existing one. I have selected it. Then after selecting it, select your region of your instance where you are going to launch it. So I'm going to select East US as a default region. Then here I'm going to create a one instance name. That instance name I'm going to give it like unique one. Let's say that I'm going to give it like Wikipedia hyphen Azure multi. I'm going to give it. After giving it, select a pricing tier. Please choose this pricing tier very carefully. So depends upon your pricing tier, your prices may vary. So this is standard S0 is given as a free standard tier. I have given it. Then click on acknowledge it. So after selecting it, click review and create. Once click review and create, it will create a multi-service account under your resources. Multi-service account under your resources. So here after that, click on create. So these are the information I have given it. Subscription, resource group, region I have selected it, and the name of the multi-service account I have created is like Wikipedia Azure multi. And pricing tier, standard 50, that was the free use, so I have used that thing. Then click on create. So after clicking on create, wait for it, wait for some time for, after clicking on it, wait for the deployment. Once the deployment has been done, you can see that your deployment is complete. So here you can see it like deployment name is here, and it's like Microsoft Cognitive Services all in one, and ended with some ID, subscription, resource group, everything else. So here the most important thing what we need to have it like resources. That is like you are going to share this in terms of an some link. Okay, so for that we need to need about type name of your service, URL of your service, and the key for your service. So where you can find it out like, so initially we will be in overview page, scroll through resource management. In that resource management, select key and endpoint. In that key and endpoint, you will be seeing like key, locations, and endpoint. These things will be needed for further use. Let me integrate with this with an GitHub project. We will try to do with a GitHub project. Now we are going to use a REST interface. For that REST interface, I'm going to integrate this Azure AI multi-account with a REST interface. For that, what we need to have it like, we need to code it. So for that coding, we don't want to code it. So here there is they have given us some demo GitHub source code with it. With that source code, we are going to integrate it. For the basic requirement, what we needed is like, we have to have a Visual Studio Code editor. If you are working with an Python, then you should have about a Python installed with it, and it should be configured with your Visual Studio Code Editor. Now, you can, if you are well versed in data science, you can create your project here, or else I will give you a guidance about it. So instead of code concentrating on the data science, we will be seeing how to integrate with that Azure AI service with your existing code. So I have already have one GitHub code available here. So I'm going to clone it locally through Visual Studio Code Editor. So this is the GitHub account. Once you click on it, it will ask for your location where you want to clone it. Select a folder. Wait for it. Wait for it. Depends upon internet connections. Your GitHub get cloned and it will be stored locally. Yes. Now it has been succeeded. So the project will be loading it. So this is the sample project. I got it from GitHub. So here in this project, MS Learn AI services, that is something called as a lab files. In that lab files, we are going to do some kind of a projects. 4 different projects are given it. So in that project, for the first access, we are going to try it with Azure AI services. We are going to connect an Azure AI services with our existing code. So 2 different project codes are available. Either you can try it out with C# code or Python code. Now I'm going to try it with Python code. Expand the Python code. In that we have REST client ADK, SDI, and then SDK client. So first access, we will be integrating our Azure AI services with our REST API. With our REST API. Now the most important thing about thing is like, if you are working with either Python file or C# file, whatever it may be, there are 2 things you should remember it. Let's say that if you are going to integrate your Azure AI service with a REST client, then you have to give them as some setup files. What are the setup things you have to give it? Like name of your service endpoint, location, and then key, right? So this will be using it to integrate your Azure AI service with your project. where you will be giving, like we will be working on something called as environment files .env files. So in that Python folder we have something called .env. Double click it. So in that env file we will be updating your key value and then, so here there is something called AI service endpoint. Your AI service endpoint, this was the thing, it was given here. We have to update it with our service created URL. Here we have endpoint, copy this endpoint, paste it here. Okay, then similarly for authentication we need to have a key. So where to find a key? Same thing, same place, under resource management, key and endpoint, there are two keys available. Either you can use any one of a key, select, copy it, paste it, and then save your project. File, save all. Now we have created the environment variables, created the environment variables, environment setup has been done. Then after that we have to run a code. For that we have something called as a rest client.py. So most of a partial code they have already done it. They have already done it. 1 minute. They have done it. So this is the Python code they have done it. So here we have to do some settings. Along that we have also include some dependencies also there, right? So restclient.py is there. That is the thing we are going to run it. So first thing what we have to do it, like right click on this restclient folder, select open in terminal. When you click on an opening terminal, it will open the folder path. First thing is, like before writing any code, you have to set your environment in .env file. That is a step one. After setting it, then we have to install all the dependencies. So for installing the dependency, we will be using pip command. So what is a pip command? It helps us to install all the dependencies. So the command is like pip install, pip install, then your Python environment. That is like pip space install space Python hyphen .env, python.env. Okay, now click enter. So once you have entered it, it will try to install all the basic requirements needed for to run your project. This we call it as a dependencies. This we call it as a dependencies. So once this dependency has been installed, you have to test run your project. So how to test run your project? Simple thing, to run a Python program, we will be compiling it, running it. The command will be like python sorry python space file name. So I'm going to run a file name called, in that rest client I have a folder called rest hyphen client.py. That thing I'm going to run it. Press enter. So when you press enter, you can see that it will asking for some action. For example, if you enter some hello, then it will give you a some id, some text. It will identify what kind of input you have given it. So it have identified as a language as English, and then again it will ask for some other. Let's say that this time I'm going to enter another word called banjo, right? Now once you've entered it, it will identify the language as French. Now what we have included, like we have included a REST API. This REST API helps us to identify the type of a input, type of a language, right? So this is like already they have coded it, but for identifying these languages, they have took this API from your multi-service account in the Microsoft Azure. Okay. Now let me check with show with you much more example. I'm going to give you an one Tamil text. Let me check with it. Tamil language. Okay, we will try to give you some Tamil word. Check with whether it is identifying the language correctly or not. Thank you all. Please subscribe and support. So this is the text, English text. Now I'm going to give this as a Tamil input to this service. Let me check with whether it is getting identified the text correctly. I just copied and pasted it. It is clearly identifying it as a Tamil. So now what we have created it, we have created an multi-service account. In that multi-service account, we have included the REST API. In that REST API, we are going to identify the input, what kind of language it is giving it, right? So now this was the very basic thing, basic exercise, how to integrate and REST API with your AI. Okay, thank you all. So this was the first video. In the later video, we will be doing with much more actions also, right? If you are those who are interested, please give a comment. If you want to run the same code, run the same settings, how to work with an how to work with an C sharp, then that video also I will be posting it later.